Hello there. Oh look, I've got a royal flush and I don't even know how to play poker. Amazing. Now for this one, you'll need an image for each of the cards. You'll need an image for the back of the cards, and you'll need an image for the table. Start off by making a new composition. And then go to your project panel and take out the first card and drag and drop that one as a layer. And then scale it to the size that you want it to be, the size that looks about right to you. And then maybe make a note of that size for future reference. Then right click the card and go and choose pre-compose. Move all the attributes into that new composition and then just double click it to edit it. Now, each of the cards is going to need a front and a back, so this is the existing one, that's going to be the front layer. And then I'm going to take out the back image. You can take that back image out and scale that to the same amount you just made a note of. That's going to be our back layer. I'll call it back. And I'm going to just drag that below the front layer. And then you can make both of these layers into 3D layers. And press P on the front layer, press P to bring up the position and set the Z index to -1 just to move that 1 pixel closer to the camera. Now go to the project panel, select the card comp that you just made and do Ctrl or Command D to duplicate this one to make your second card. And then just double click it to edit it. Select the front layer and then from the project panel select the image you want to replace this one with. Hold down the Alt key and drag and drop it on top of that front layer to replace that bit of footage. Back in the main comp, let's take out the table background from the project panel and drag and drop that as a new bottom layer. I'm going to call that one table. And then just maybe lock it up for safekeeping. Start to deal with the card itself, the first of our cards. Now this layer, this nested comp layer, itself needs to be a 3D layer so that we can see the back of the card when it gets flipped over. But we need to do something to just rectify that situation a little bit. If I press R to bring up its rotation and just adjust the Y rotation, you can see at the moment we can't see the back of the card. That's because the layers within the nested comp themselves are being treated as 2D layers, and that's where this star switch comes in. In this instance it performs an operation called collapse transformations, and if I click on that one, hey presto, you can see it's fixed that. There's a little bit of a trade-off just to mention, which is when that is activated we lose the material options for this one. If I toggle that off again, you can see the material options come back, whereby we can cast shadows, for example, from lights. We can't do that because we need this switch on. So later on down the line, we'll have to go ahead and build our own shadows. That's all that means. I'm going to just reset this one back to 0 rotation right now. And then we can continue with animating this first card. Let's allow, say, don't know, about 15 frames or something for the card to be dealt. And at that point, with this card layer selected, we'll bring up the position, the rotation, and the scale. And we'll keyframe position, scale, and Y rotation. And just twirl the Z rotation a little bit, just to put that at a kind of a sort of a jaunty angle. Maybe just move the position slightly to one side as well. Yeah, something like that. And let's get back to the beginning and make our few changes. So the main one will be the Y rotation. So we could make the first number 1 for the number of rotations, and then for the additional degrees, let's make it minus 180, so that that'll get flipped over. And then, because it's kind of close to the camera, as it were, we'll scale it up. You know, as it's being dealt from a height, we'll make that bigger. So we can see that being dealt in from some kind of height. And the other way, there we go. And for the same reason, let's just put a bit of blur on it as well. So right click in that card layer there, go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen. How about Fastbox Blur? That should do it. Going to keyframe the blur radius and drag that up to make it nice and blurry, and then we can press K to move to the next set of keyframes, set that blur radius back to 0, and then let's just double click the blur radius property up here in the effect controls so we can reveal that one down there on the timeline. And we'll select all of these keyframes like so, and let's just go ahead and F9 those two, ease them. And one last thing, of course, is if we go back to the beginning, we need to move this card kind of off stage left, let's say. So I'm going to just do that by dragging it out over there. There we go. And let's have a quick look at that one and see if that, yeah, sort of thing is what we want. Something like that works for me. And then we'll proceed to add a shadow to it now. So this is my ace layer, doing an ace for this one, as we can see. And there's so many different ways of doing this. I'm going to do it by just duplicating that layer to start with. So Control or Command D will just duplicate that one, and then this is going to be the ace shadow. There we go. Let's make it real clear. This first one is the ace card, let's say. I'm going to start with the shadow layer. I've got it on top at the minute, but we'll resolve that shortly. Right click that layer, and let's go to Effect and say Color Correction. How's about Hue and Saturation? And if we then just take that master lightness down all the way to the left, we can then just make it blurry as well. So again, right click, Effect, Blur and Sharpen, this time Gaussian blur, for example, and drag that lot up to kind of fuzzify the edges, as it were. I think that's the official term for it anyway. Fuzzifying. Alright, and then it's a question of just fine-tuning that lot a little bit. I don't want the shadow to be moving. So if we click on that ace shadow layer, or whatever card you deal in shadow layer, press U, and that will reveal all of the properties that have been keyframed. And I want to be at the last set of keyframes there, and I want to lose the position keyframes to keep it on the table. So click on that position stopwatch and we just get rid of those keyframes, and now that shadow just sort of stays kind of in place. And a couple of other little things to do. Bringing up the opacity. Don't want it so dark, so I'm going to just drop that down to some amount or other. And then also I think maybe bring up the scale for that one. I'm going to live with that actually. We've already scaled it, so I guess that's all right really. Could make it a bit smaller. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do at the beginning, because it's going to be staying on the table. Let's just drop that down a little bit. So this time as the table falls, the shadow is going to do like that. Looks a bit weird at the minute. Let's see what it looks like with the shadow below the card, where it's supposed to be. And how would that look if we have another little quick preview of that one? Yeah, not too bad, I think. Maybe just drag the opacity even fainter. I don't want it to like look really strong personally. Fair enough. Let's go with that. And then it's just really just a bit more of the same for the remaining cards that you want to deal. We'll do one together anyway, just to practice it. So to create the next set, we can just shift select the shadow and card layers that we've already got. Control or Command D to duplicate them. Move the second shadow below the second card, and then we'll just swap over the footage a little bit using that same technique we used earlier. So starting with the top card, get that one selected, select the next card footage from your project panel, hold down the Alt key and drag and drop that one, and that should replace that one. So let's rename that. My one's a 10, so that's my 10 card layer. You don't really see the shadow, but it's probably a good idea to do a similar thing with that one, so I'm going to swap that one over as well. And then we'll rename that layer, and this can be 10 shadow. They're both kind of falling at exactly the same time, which is not something we want, so move the CTI along a bit. Don't know exactly wherever it feels right or wherever it looks right. Select the card and the shadow layers and press the left square bracket key just to move their start to yay point. Yeah, so one falls after the other, and then we'll just do a little bit of fine tuning on those ones. So what we could nicely just do is find out just about where it needs to be at. In fact, let's press U again so we know exactly where we are and get to that last set of keyframes. We'll start off with the rotation. So if we press R, all we need to do is just twirl the Z rotation in the opposite direction a little bit, and then press P to just move the card over to the other side a little bit like that. Let's have a look and see if that didn't just do it. There we go. There's one, there's the other, and we've got blackjack now. Must be our lucky day. And that's more or less it really. We could just sell it a little better by doing a little bit of something with the actual table. To set that off, I'm going to just select this table layer and pre-compose it as well. And then make that one into a 3D layer as well. Shift select all of them, all the layers, bring up the rotation, and just drag the X orientation to the left a little bit. There we go. Just to put it more at a bit of a interesting sort of angle. And then with the table layer, scale it up a little bit to just fill in the gaps, as it were. And we'll put a little bit of a mask over that. Take the elliptical ellipse tool, the elliptical ellipse tool, and if you line up its crosshair with the center of the comp, as you click and drag, you can hold down your control on the PC or command on the Mac to draw that from its own center. There we go. And if we press F, we can access its feather property to sort of soften those edges out a little like that. See where we're going here. And if we select that table layer and duplicate that one, drag that one below the other one, press M to bring up its mask and just delete its mask, but then drag down its opacity a little bit to create that sort of kind of a little bit like a spotlight effect without having to use any lights really. And that is probably more or less it. Let's have a quick look at it. And yeah, they fall on the table. It's at a bit of an angle now, and there we go. It doesn't have to be playing cards, of course, either. Like this old Instagram thing I did once, it is sort of like a postcard thing. So I've got these postcard photos with a background, a little bit of a write on at the end. And that's all for the time being. So thanks for watching. Bye now.